Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Social Club at the End of the World. In this hour, we are focused on the topic of radical collective intelligence. And this is one of three topics that we're covering today. The first was refreezing the Arctic. The second is this one, radical collective intelligence. And the third will be a new story for humanity. And in fact, I thought what I might do, well, first of all, let me acknowledge my co-hosts who are here on the program, Adam in Olympia, Washington, Dan in Chicago, Illinois, and Jason in Long Beach, California. Welcome, gentlemen. And I'm going to go on mute so y'all can say hello.
Oh, hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Glad to be talking. And thanks for doing this, Jason.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, Dan from Chicago. Good to be able to have this discussion. And again, I'll be here for about maybe 20, 25 minutes. I think I can go. And again, good to be here.
Awesome.
Hey,
Jason, go for it.
I'm Jason. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show.
Awesome. All right. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to our viewers who are watching in real time, as well as those who watch the recording. Just so everyone knows, everyone, literally everyone in the world, anyone and everyone, is welcome to join this conversation. Yes, you can actually be like the rest of us and be here on the video conference. And people join from time to time who we've never seen before, and we always love that. So I post the link to join on my Facebook page, on my Google Plus page, and also in a YouTube video that I published earlier this morning that's about a minute long that just has the link and instructions on an invitation to join. So today, on this hour, we're focused on radical collective intelligence as kind of a grand meta solution. I'm just going to draw a quick little sketch here just to kind of show how all these three topics interconnect with each other. So the way I see it, if we're going to get humanity unstuck in a significant way from the current path that we're on, we need, why does it keep doing that? All right, let me fix this here. Okay. We need a new story for humanity. Why does it keep doing that? Sorry, you guys. I just kept it. Do I need to let's see. Okay, hopefully it'll behave. Please behave. Thank you very much. I think we need a new story for humanity, right? Our current story is one of accumulation and progress and freedom and expansion and everything's getting better and better. Well, that story is obviously completely kaput and bankrupt. I believe this new story will unite, if not necessarily all of humanity, but a significant portion of humanity. Even if it's 1% of humanity, that would be a gargantuan number, to come together to participate in either radical collective intelligence or something very similar to it, where we create and evolve a vastly higher form of intelligence than anything human and terrestrial witnessed on Earth, including the great collaborations of history. Soviet Union in World War II, NASA in the 60s and 70s being just a couple notable examples that come to mind, but there are myriad examples throughout history. We can do much better than all of those combined. And that's the promise and potential of radical collective intelligence. What do we do with that? We come up with all of what I'll call the engineering solutions for refreezing the Arctic, for shutting down nuclear, and for all the other objectives that we wish to accomplish. But then, even if you have all these engineering solutions, how do you get the governments of the world to do their part? How do you get the private sector to do their part? How do you get people in general to do their part? These solutions that are just on paper, will remain only on paper until we get serious resources put behind them. So that beckons for what I put into one big bucket. I'll just call them social / cultural / political / spiritual solutions, right? We got engineering solutions. That's, really only a part of it. We need all these other solutions, notably political solutions. But then why do I include social and cultural if it's just political? Well, in order to move the hand of politics, to move the hand of government, if you've got a whole bunch of people behind you and a culture that's evolving, a culture of healing and protecting Mother Earth and life on Earth in general, then we can force the hand of government or transform government through evolution, through moratoriums, through referendums, through, you name it. So, but I put this on the farmost right because in order to create these other solutions and make them effective, political solutions, for example, it helps very much if we come to the table with engineering solutions, with collective intelligence, and with a new story for humanity that inspires, unites, and motivates people to get on board with all of the above. Get on board with the new story, with radical collective intelligence, with the engineering solutions to refreeze the Arctic, shut down nuclear, clean up the oceans, sequester carbon, etc. So that's kind of the big picture. That's how it all kind of fits together. And radical collective intelligence is an important part of it and supposed to be the main topic of this hour, but I'm totally happy talking about all topics because they all fit together. I'm going to go back on video mode, and I'm also going to go on mute. And welcome, Michael. I see Michael from France has joined us. Welcome, Michael. How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you. Awesome. I guess you had a bandwidth issue in the last hour. Great to see you. Great to hear you.
I did indeed. Here I am. So, what can you do? Well, this is all very interesting to me, and I think actually the relationship between those four is inevitably going to be a part of any discussion of radical collective intelligence, right? Not just that there are these, 4+ different domains, but in fact, you can think of radical collective intelligence as sort of like plugging into all of them and to any number of other ones, right? And so I think it's just an ongoing conversation that we're going to be having about what between all of these and radical collective intelligence, and then in turn, by way of through radical collective intelligence, what could be the relationship of the different domains, what are they be, right? Because to a certain extent, we actually want to change the relationships, enrich the relationships that they have with one another. Part of the problem is simply that we live in such a compartmentalized, like siloed existence that too many of these domains kind of carry on their merry way without a meaningful relationship to one another.
Yep, great points, Michael. Yeah, and it kind of underscores that we need to address all of this holistically. Like, for example, before we started recording, Dan was mentioning how this one video that I had shared of Stuart Scott speaking to a large group of Chinese students at Columbia University, and then subtitled in Chinese. Dan sent that to a friend in China to check it out, and that friend could not watch the video because it was censored in China. Right? So China simply, programmatically, systematically is kept in the dark, a whole country kept in the dark about the realities of abrupt climate change. And again, this gets back to the attachment issue that we were talking about in the last hour. China is very attached to its ascent in the world. And, don't tell me I need to slow down my rocket jets of my ascent because I'm spewing out too many greenhouse gases. So it gets back to attachment, to this fundamental issue of attachment to what we think we have obtained, what we think we've hoarded, what we think we've won, psychologically we don't want to give up what we think we've obtained. I'm going to go on mute so Dan can talk. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. So I do think that, with radical collective intelligence, it's really important to have access to China, India, which is easier, but Russia, really everybody who understands the planetary implosion needs to be able to be a part of the process. And we have this censorship problem, where governments have managed to control most of the media outlets. And, when you get to the editorial or the higher levels, they can censor whatever it is they want, and everybody understands they better go along with that or they will no longer be working and making a living. And that's just a reality which is out there. And we also have all of the secrecy, kinds of agreements. So they're able to control the flow of information. And it just seems to me that if we have relatively ignorant populations in the United States, in Europe, in China, in Russia, etc., it's just a huge problem because they cannot then demand that something be done. And we can attribute it in part to economic incentives, greed and selfishness on the part of people who are wealthy. It's almost like I was joking with somebody in the elevator here in my building, where we were talking a little bit about the weather. I always try to probe to see whether the person, one of my neighbors, is aware of what's really going on in the Arctic, etc. And, there was kind of this, trying to take in what I was saying, but not really able to, and there wasn't time. But then I kind of joked. I said, well, and I know this, but I said, what you ought to be doing right now is putting a good piece of money into corn futures. And the person's face just lit up. Yeah, maybe that, kind of, that's a great idea. And the way we are constructed, it's almost like a lot of people, if they heard, we maybe only have a few years left, the grain crops are going to be destroyed, they're going to be thinking, wow, I can make a lot of money here. I'll just, invest in grain futures, make a fortune, and I, it's just, the way we are, we need to be able to discuss that and try to put the brakes on, these kinds of tendencies, because it's very, very destructive when you're looking at, destruction, even if it's a civilization, local somewhere, or as it's been historically, or right now we're talking about, the entire planet. I don't believe for a moment that the wealthy elites are going to be able to survive the kind of planetary implosion that will come sooner or later. And even if they were somehow, psychologically, emotionally, it just seems like they would be in hell, even if they are surviving. And that's something which can be talked about and discussed. I'm going to go ahead and mute out.
I'll respond to that. So I think people, the rich people per se, and that's ambiguous, because people in third world countries would certainly think that I'm rich, and I don't consider myself rich. But the people who are like in the top 1% or the 1% of the 1%, we seem to think it's all their fault, and they're going, they're controlling all the strings. But I think that I haven't been able to prove this yet, but I'm looking into it. And that money is a literal poison to mankind. And what's good about looking at it like that is, instead of thinking of rich people as the doers of all evil, you realize that they're just under the influence of poison. So any one of us, if we were born into that, if we got that money, we would be acting the same way, because they're human beings just like us. And they are going to be, I agree with you, Dan, they're going to want a way out, because even if they plan to let the Arctic melt and for a great deal of the population to die, and then they're going to miraculously go back and refreeze the Arctic. I mean, what a horrible thing to have to live with, for one thing, and it probably won't work. They've got so many other factors. If all these people die, what's going to happen to nuclear power plants? I mean, there's so many details that have not been cleaned up before they would even be ready to do something like this. That I think that it'll just won't go well. And what I like about the idea of ending our use of money is that you can't blame anybody. And when the rich people realize that they're not going to be blamed, then they won't defend themselves. They'll want to jump on the bandwagon, and they'll let go of their secrets. And pretty soon we'll have all kinds of ideas, and we'll have people going up to the Arctic to refreeze the Arctic. So I think they're looking for a way out, and we need part of the scope or the plan for this new plan for life we're going to talk about next is that we can't blame anybody, and they just need to be. We need to bring everybody on board. That's all I have to say.
If I could just, I'm going to have to go in a few minutes. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, well, everybody is to blame. We all are to blame. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the thing is with the wealthy elites, some of them are ignorant, just like everyone else. They don't really have a clue. They're just going about what they do all the time, playing the game. What can I do to acquire more? How can I invest to acquire more? It almost becomes like playing a game. We all know what that's like, and it feels good if you're doing well and you're winning. They don't understand that it's going to come to an end and what the consequences are. It's very easy for us to be in denial. I know what's going on, I think. I don't know whether Guy McPherson is right. It's just going to be over very shortly, or there's more extent of time. But I know it's going to be dystopian, and it's going to happen relatively soon. So with that kind of knowledge, in my mind, I just feel like if everybody understood this, it's not that hard to understand. It doesn't require a PhD in physics to understand what's actually going down. It's very explainable. And if people knew it, they would demand, again, that, military be restructured to perform whatever can be done to save things. And the idea that, some people can escape to Mars, they can have their underground bunkers, et cetera, that's something which, is really unacceptable. It's just another manifestation of the problem, and we have an economic system, sometimes referred to as neoliberalism. And we've had this for a long time, at least going back to the 1980s, and even maybe before that. what that kind of an economic system and kind of cultural approach does is it facilitates people becoming sociopathic or psychopathic. And that is, unfortunately what we have in a lot of positions of power. So all of these, radical collective intelligence, in my fantasy, it would really be this enterprise where we could be talking to people, again, in China, India, wherever, and, kind of recognizing that we need to come together, that the aliens are invading from outer space and everybody needs to unite and try to solve it, to behave in an honorable way. Most human beings have it hardwired in. There's an honorable way to be and a dishonorable way to be. And nobody wants to particularly be dishonorable. And so I do think that radical collective intelligence is necessary. It's a good thing, even if it wasn't necessary, but I think it's really necessary in order to bring people together and not to have these kind of natural tribalistic divisions, Chinese versus Westerners, etc., which still dominates the mindset of a lot of populations. So anyway, I have to get going, guys. I really love these conversations, and I'll look forward to getting together with you all next week. Take care.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Great to see you. All right. Michael, did you have something to say? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh no, I was just thinking, Dan.
Okay, cool.
I don't know what he has against psychopaths, but other than that.
Yeah, I think psychopaths can be pretty cool people. But anyway, so yeah.
But well, I guess I will say something to what Dan said, and it was something along the lines of something I wanted to say in the last hangout, but I was having some bandwidth problems, so I'll just say it now. And that is in terms of a point Alex made. Too bad he dropped off, when he did, because he was making some very good points. And one of the things he talked about was the structuralist approach, as opposed to say kind of like a People's Magazine approach to who's hot, who's not, who's good, who's bad, who's ugly, right? Where you're actually you're taking a systematic approach in looking at this. And I think one of the ways to interpret what Dan's saying is in terms of nationalism, right? And our personal identity that we have, that is not exclusively, but largely related to our national identity, right? Whereas there are so many other ways that one could identify. And in the past, there were other ways that people did identify, right? But now the nation state, that institutionalized structure that provides, so much of our socialization, becomes an impediment to progress. Because instead of seeing ourselves as, citizens of the world, right? Part of this, cosmic consciousness, and here I just mean cosmic in the sense of worldly, not otherworldly. We don't look at the world through the prism of a whole world, right? It's like we're peeking through these cracks. It's not only that we have this certain attachment to our own national identities, but we see the world that way, right? It's very protectionist, and we talk about the rich person with his or her bunker, right, or one-way ticket to Mars, but on a national level, that's reproduced, so that we say, okay, maybe other nations will go down, but we won't, right? So we're okay, right? So there's a very natural correspondence there, an inevitable one, I think, between the two. But to move beyond that nationalistic paradigm is certainly part of the solution towards a whole world. So just identifying with the whole world, to the extent that we identify with the whole world, right? We and see ourselves as a part of that. We can envision it. We can achieve it.
Yeah, beautiful, Michael. And that's part of the new story for humanity, is humanity united. And in order to unite humanity, that's where I talk about, we talk about a new story for humanity, and we also talk about all of the social, cultural, and political solutions that will be required. I mean, a social, cultural solution could simply be a meme. It could be a 6-word meme that just goes viral, right? And that, really helps people unlock what they know or what they have access to, but psychologically, emotionally, they've been preventing themselves from opening up their eyes and seeing. So these are all, that's why I call all of these solutions. And to fully create any one given solution, I'd like to introduce the metaphor, the analogy of the operating room at a hospital, where you've got a couple of surgeons and a couple of specialists, anesthesiologists, nurses, assistants, and so you got this whole team effort. They could not do the operation without the entire team there. They couldn't be able to do it effectively. Well, that's a metaphor I'd like to use for developing solutions. We're not going to be able to co-create the right solutions until and unless we have the right mix of people at the table, at the operating table, at the drafting table, in front of the screen where we're coding the software. I mean, just look at this. Look at the solution that Jason is implementing right there in terms of gardening and growing plants there at his home. There are elements of soil, plant genetics, nutrients, water, sunlight. I see potted plants. There's probably an irrigation system. So there's all these elements that had to come together that different people or different groups of people had to co-create. Using collective intelligence. So what we're talking about is basically the process that we already engage in to do co-creation, but taking it many orders of magnitude more powerful, more fast, more efficient, and more productive, including leveraging these video conferences where people can come together from all over the world, boom, and be in one place, a virtual place on a video conference at one time, sharing information, screen sharing, as I do often. So sharing information across multiple media. I could share a video on my screen if I wanted to. And so that puts us all at the same virtual room, gathered around the same operating table, back to the previous analogy. And many minds make heavy work light. Many minds can figure out things that individuals have heretofore been unable to figure out. That's the essence of collective intelligence. And if you look at all of our problems, including the engineering problems that we need to solve, the social, political, cultural problems that we need to solve, all the myriad problems we need to solve, we need to create this new story for humanity. We need to transform the global economy, our entire set of living arrangements. We need to build our college. We need to do so many things, and it's all so intricately connected. Sometimes it seems impossible to break out of the current paradigm and modality. But with collective intelligence and with large numbers of people participating, both in co-creating the platform so that the collective intelligence can work properly, and for co-creating all the other solutions that we need, I really believe that's the way forward, and that either radical collective intelligence or something fundamentally very similar to it is going to be vital, crucial, necessary for co-creating all the myriad solutions that we're going to need to either A, get out of this mess if possible, or B, save as much life on Earth as possible, even if humanity is not part of the set of species being saved. With that, I'll go on mute, since I've said a mouthful.
Yeah, well said. I think an important part of that, and something that's absolutely essential to collective intelligence, is that there's a diversity of perspectives coming from a diversity of participants, right? So that, one of the ways that we break down, those barriers and actually, achieve the parallax necessary is by having, more than just white males, on a hangout. To the extent that we get people from, all walks of life, we're going to have all these different perspectives represented, hearing different points of view, integrating those points of view, et cetera. So one simple solution is to get it, regardless of the numbers, to get the diversity necessary to get that process going.
Yep, exactly. And, because ultimately it's not one operating table working on one problem. It'll be ultimately thousands, eventually hundreds of thousands, even millions of operating tables with very unique combinations of human beings at each and every one of these millions of tables, working on different solutions or different parts of a given solution, et cetera. So diversity is absolutely key, because diversity in perspective is a crucial part of intelligence. So is memory. Therefore, recording these video conferences gives us that. So is the systematic and programmatic mapping of information to conversations. So here we are in a conversation right now. Imagine we just had instant access through this very same interface to all forms of information that would support this conversation. So as the AI listens into what we're saying, transcribes it to text, maps that text to various information sources, documents, and whatnot, kaboom, those documents can be brought in. Anyway, I'm kind of giving a little bit of a potpourri of elements of radical collective intelligence and the overall vision for how this can be utilized to generate all the solutions that we need. And I'll continue to do so, but first I'm going to go on mute. Looks like Adam has something to say.
Yeah, I agree with Mike that, we don't want just a bunch of social club for white men. I mean, we want everybody to join in, and that means people from India and, all over the world, and especially women, especially because we need their heart. And it's women that really move the world. I mean, they're all, who does a husband who is, in charge of a company go to and talk to at home? I mean, it's his wife, so we need, and sometimes the wives, I'm not saying that they don't run companies, but I'm just saying typically it's kind of like that. We need their heart. That's all I have to say right now.
Yeah, their heart. They're half the population.
I think you broke up a little there, Michael. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I realized that. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So look, in the end, the way I see it, we need as many people as we can get on radical collective intelligence working together in this orchestrated, symbiotic way that really amplifies our intelligence. Part of the way I see radical collective intelligence really, evolving and growing quickly. There's relatively few of us who are engaged right now on the Radish platform. That's partly because we're building out the platform as we speak. But as the world falls apart and continues to fall apart, more and more people will wake up and say, wow, the world's falling apart. I don't like this. I wonder if there's something that can be done. I wonder if anyone is working on solutions. So I think the market for solutions is going to become very, very hot. And therefore, the demand for Radish and everything that we're doing here on Radish, including the social club at the end of the world, will become very hot. That's my prediction. Go on mute. All righty. Well, I'll tell you what, it's 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I could actually use a little break myself before we start the next one on a new story for humanity. But first, let me see if anyone has anything else they'd like to add on the topic of radical collective intelligence.
I think it's a great idea. Radical collective intelligence.
Root down.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
How does that? I think.
Oh, Jason, you're unmuted.
We need a place to go to submit our ideas and have them organized and you know, I know that'll just help us an awful lot. We don't have any place like that right now. So I'm looking forward to Radical Collective Intelligence coming out.
Thank you, Adam. So am I, and it's kind of mind blowing that we don't have a place where humanity can come together, share information, organize ourselves around projects, and really do this in a systematic way. Go about co-creating all the solutions that we need in a very systematic, structured way. Pretty mind-boggling. You know, there's a lot of the elements, a lot of the pieces are scattered throughout the earth. Like, for example, you've got academia with all the academic journal articles. That's a treasure trove of information, but it's not plugged in or integrated with a platform for people coming together to co-create solutions other than the academics themselves, right? And in many cases with these academic journal articles, it's academia writing to academia as opposed to writing to the world. So part of the mission of Radish is going to be unlocking and making all that information accessible to a mass audience through appropriate mapping to the various topics in the toposphere of Radical Collective Intelligence, all the taxonomies of topics that really give it structure, give structure to the information, give context and place for every bit of information, so that when conversations coalesce around specific topic or cluster of topics, you've got programmatic access to all that relevant information. Going on mute.
And it gives people a place to go. It's a platform for people to give voice, right? People are so bottled up, right, with frankly with so much to say, so much to share, just to be in community. All needs are in need, right? And it's not that Radish is the only place where that can happen, but to the extent that we can make that happen, we're going to certainly enrich individual and also collective intelligence.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like employing a superhuman power to help us, because you know, a computer can can assimilate more information than the smartest genius in the world. And so, I mean, and that's, you know, we have all this data, but we don't have it assimilated and, you know, coordinated, and people can't go and add to it or you know, you know, look at it. And that's going to be really critical in the future, I think, because in order to solve these problems, we're going to have to use geoengineering. I mean, there's just no way around it. You know, so which method of geoengineering do we use? Well, do we use John Smith's method that a lot of people agree with, or do we use the government method or whatever method? But then if with Radical Collective Intelligence, then we might be able to go to the artificial intelligence engine and say, tell us what the best, you know, shake the magic 8-ball and say, which is the best method, you know? And so then it analyzes all this information and gives us a better choice than the best genius in the world could give us. And so that's the kind of way I'm thinking about it.
And something that we're internal to, right? Instead, it's something that we are a part of, at least potentially, instead of just something that we're like on the outside of, looking, you know, to and saying, "Oh wow, what a beautiful machine!" Right? It's something that we can feel like we're a part of this thing that's greater, than each and every one of us.
Yeah, the way I see it, we see artificial intelligence. There's a lot of misconception around what artificial intelligence is and how it works, and a lot of people erroneously conceive of it as something that you can just talk to and ask questions of, and it'll give you the answers. In specific knowledge domains, there are indeed artificial intelligence programs that that actually can answer questions, but only in those specific knowledge domains. We still do not have a general artificial intelligence that can literally substitute for humanity, much less do better than what a person can do. Again, outside of very specific domains. So notably, artificial intelligence can beat humans at, Texas Hold'em poker, Jeopardy, chess, you name the game. But those are all very bounded and have.
What about checkers?
Pardon me? And checkers. And so what we're talking about is essentially cobbling together a bunch of different modules of artificial intelligence to essentially fill in the gaps and bridge what humans can't do. But the vast majority of the creativity going on is, at this time anyway, in 2018, is still humans doing the creating. The artificial intelligence can do the refining, the optimizing, determining the optimal, set of solutions given the large population of potential solutions, using global holistic modeling and AI-based optimization. But those are nonetheless components or modules of artificial intelligence. It's still, so you can sort of think of it as, a brick wall where the bricks are human beings and the mortar is the AI that connects us all together and makes us much more powerful, much stronger, able to support a lot more weight than just a pile of bricks itself. So it's really a composite between collective group human intelligence and various modules and technologies of artificial intelligence.
Okay, so it's a consensus of people that our expertise, say, on refreezing the Arctic. But the computer, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, assimilates the information, records many conversations, categorizes the different facts, puts them in a list. And so when we come to a consensus and we decide on something, then the computer could come back and say, well, did you think about this? Or there might be some other factors here that we are not considering, and they might want to reevaluate your consensus. Is that kind of where you're going? Or?
Well, here, I think it's best described by way of an example. So imagine a bunch of human beings get together. Let's just say the 5 of us, for sake of argument. We get together, and one Saturday afternoon, we spend a few hours, and we come up with some really cool design of a system to do localized shading in the Arctic with the goal of refreezing the Arctic. We then submit that to the system, right, to Radish. And we say, here's yet another candidate solution. And so what the AI is going to do is not, not just evaluate that in isolation and say good or bad or here's how to change it. What it's first going to do is and this is all moderated by humans, the AI that's used for modeling Mother Earth would be able to model this solution, superimpose it on top of what's already going on and say, okay, if this were superimposed on top of what's already going on, this would be the effect, the impact of this one solution, or the marginal impact of this one solution, to use economic speak. And then take it to a next level. The system, the modeling system with an optimization layer would be able to then model simultaneously myriad solutions operating in parallel and optimize the extent to which we should deploy this one solution over this other solution. Maybe not eliminate this one completely, but use it in certain niche areas whereas this other one is just generally applicable and it's the optimal one to use. So it's much less of, you know, a conversation or a dialectic you have back and forth with the system. I'm talking 2018 technology. In 2025, it'd be a whole different story if we're still alive then. But in 2018 technology, we're basically using AI as you know, very specific kind of like wedges, wedged in between human intelligence and creativity and ability to analyze and design. So it kind of fills in the gaps between what humans can't do that effectively, which computers can do phenomenally well. But we haven't yet reached the general artificial intelligence, much less strong AI, much less super intelligence. But you know, we're certainly on a path to get there, but we have to be realistic where we are right now. And so AI is used as very much these complementary wedges that we wedge in between human activity. And speaking of wedging, welcome back, Alex. I'm going to have to wedge in here and actually conclude this video conference and then start up the next one in the next 5 minutes, which will be on a new story for humanity. And Stuart Scott may even be able to join us. It may still be a bit early on his end, but he said he'd try if he could make it. With that, I'm gonna give you all the last word. If you can make it short and sweet, because we need to conclude this broadcast so I can start the next one. Go on mute.
Well, Jamin and everyone, I can't wait until you got Radish up and going so we can, you know, invite people and try to really help you like market it in a way. I guess that's one way I think I'd be useful, is trying to get the word out there. So, you know, and participating. So yeah, let's do this. See you at the next call.
Well, we're in private beta now, and we're about to open it up for people to apply to be able to join Radish. So this is all very imminent. Go on mute.
Alex, if you're trying to tell us something, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, yeah.
Okay. So I think AI can be possibly the greatest invention of humankind, greater than the internet. I would say that's number one right now, debatably. It's done a lot of harm to us as well. But in terms of, I came in the middle of what Jamin was talking about, but essentially an ability for a computer to see past the complex human equation, like, oh, 150 years ago or 200 years ago, we invented fossil fuels. That gives us a lot of energy. Now, the pollution caused by those fossil fuels, the harm done by the fossil fuels is greater than the output they give us. So the computer determines through whatever equation, hey, get off fossil fuels, and we fucking do it. Am I allowed to cuss on this? Sorry. That's it. That's me.
Sure. And well, anyway, AI is a whole evolution, but I really think the potential right now, given the limited evolution of AI to date, that's not to discount any of the great advances, but it's simply not there yet that it can reason as holistically and thoroughly as human beings can. They can do this in very limited domains, and you can create a model of the entire world and, you know, use AI to model and optimize scenarios within that whole world. So we're definitely getting there, but we're not quite there yet. And as far as cussing, there's not a strict rule against it. We just kind of discourage it. We try to make this as family friendly as possible, but don't feel badly if it slips out. I've been known to cuss, and certainly Jason has. So anyway, but we're a few minutes past the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and conclude this broadcast now, but please look out in your email for the next one. And we'll hopefully see you on the New Story for Humanity. So see you in a few minutes. Thanks everyone for joining.